We go to Akuffo Dampare, PhD. Dr. Akuffo Dampare has been in the news today for issuing out a letter. He issued out a letter to the British High Commissioner, but there's a bit of history on that one that we're going to start with before we get to the main issue. This is the first time, though, that a senior public official below the rank of a cabinet minister is having a go at a British High Commissioner. This is the first time. What the history presents is people of cabinet rank. So we will start. Can you change this for me so we get to that story? So we will start with the first one. It was, as you see behind me on the screen, Ambassador Victor Gbeho here. He was our foreign minister, one of the most distinguished we've had, and he was a diplomat. Ambassador Victor Gbeho became foreign minister to Flight Lieutenant Rawlings after Dr. Obed Asamoah left. This story occurred in the year 2000. Now, this is Craig Murray, and you see on Craig Murray's photograph, there's a book. It's entitled The Catholic Orange Men of Togo. Now, that book, written by Ambassador Craig Murray, is as a result of his encounter with Victor Gbeho. And at that time, I was a young reporter, and we were summoned to an urgent meeting in the year 2000 to the International Conference Center to be addressed by the foreign minister. Foreign minister had never addressed a press conference, and suddenly we were told he was addressing a press conference. So this was important. Ambassador Victor Gbeho took it down on Craig Murray. He showed him all the United Nations Geneva Conventions. Now, Craig Murray, what was Craig Murray's concern? Craig Murray's concern was that it was election related, I have to say. There had been a conversation during the 2000 election about the validity of ID cards with which people will vote, whether they will vote by photo ID cards or whether they will vote by black and white photo ID card or color photo ID card. The opposition MPP and their allies were arguing that the black and white photo ID card obscured the identity of the voter. And so when the voter turned up at the polling station, it was difficult to challenge whether or not it was he, the person who wielded the ID card, that was presenting himself to vote. And so they wanted a color photograph, and they thought the color photograph would better expose the carrier of the identification card. And that was a matter that eventually ended up in the Supreme Court. Craig Murray had added his voice to it within the area of indelible ink. So photo ID card and indelible ink were the two big conversations heading into the election 2000 to make the elections credible. And the opposition New Patriotic Party have felt that the indelible ink should not be produced and procured by the Electoral Commission, that an independent body should procure the indelible ink so that we all know how it looks like, and we go and then you have the indelible ink and it should work, because there were fears that within the context of the Rawlings people, NDC, they had a way of washing off the indelible ink in remote areas, and people were multiple voting. So Craig Murray then weighed into that and sort of swung on the side of the opposition. Victor Gbeho called a meeting at the conference center. He lambasted him. He put him right. He told him that he cannot go ahead like that. He is an ambassador for the British, and he cannot participate in internal politics in the manner that he was doing. So that was the first time this was recorded. And later on, years later, we found out Craig Murray had to leave the country. They got him out of the country. Of course, the country can always get you out by writing to your host country that we don't like the way this man is behaving. Usually, under the international protocols, you will be asked to leave. But this was at the highest level, at the foreign minister's level. And then he produced this book, The Catholic Orange Men of Togo. So if you want to Google the book and find it, perhaps you can find, Kuku, you are here. He sent me the book on Funtumi Elastica, the one I've shared with some of you. So he can find it. It's entitled The Catholic Orange Men of Togo. It's a book about Ghana's 2000 elections. It's written by Craig Murray, the Deputy High Commissioner at the time. So that was the first time this fight occurred. It happened again. Hannah Tete became foreign minister upon the assumption to the presidency of John Dramani Mahama, who won the election in December 2012. Hannah Tete became foreign minister. At that time, Ambassador John Benjamin was the High Commission. Now, I myself had an issue with John Benjamin. As some of you know, I was invited to MC the 10th anniversary of Imani Ghana because they are good friends of mine, Bright and Franklin. And during the MC, John Benjamin had just arrived as High Commissioner. He was a special guest of honor. During the event, John Benjamin said to the audience in Alisa that Ghanaian journalists, all they know is Soli. And I protested and I walked away from emceeing the event. Later on, Joy FM interviewed me to ask me why I did that, and the video is here. If we have time, we'll show it to you. So I had that issue with John Benjamin because I didn't understand why a foreign diplomat comes to Ghana. You come to an event and you are complaining that journalists take Solé, and you invite journalists to your place and they take Solé. I was wondering why he's even inviting them to come and cover a British High Commission event. Do your event and publish it yourself. Why are you asking Metro TV to come? And if Metro TV comes, you have to pay for it. I was clear in my mind then. You can't do that anywhere in the world. If I come to your event, I come to your. If you ask me to come to the event, you have an obligation to pay me for it. I don't know how complicated this conversation is. And so I told him that, but John Benjamin, you can't say that. What is journalists come to an event? You invited them to come to the event. Well, how should they come? You are not the president. You are not a Stop News. You are not Parliament. You are not a Story We Want. You are British High Commission. You are doing something charitable. That's great. We will cover it, but we'll cover it at your cost. Hello? Okay. So I told him that, and I just walked out of the event. I didn't MC it anymore. But later on, Adom-Otchere, the foreign minister, had occasion to complain about John Benjamin's, extra comments on Mary and all of these things and all of that. So that was the next occasion when, here in Ghana, there was a tussle between somebody at the highest level, foreign minister, with the ambassador. Again, it happened to be the United Kingdom's ambassador. This time, it was the ambassador himself. The first one was the Deputy High Commissioner. Craig Murray was the Deputy High Commissioner. He was not the ambassador himself. Now, it was John Benjamin. Next time, we are having that now. It's come down below the level of a cabinet minister, which is foreign ministers that we've had in the past. But it's the Inspector General of Police. That's novel. Never happened. And the Inspector General of Police is having a go at Harriet Thompson, the British High Commissioner. So we're going to go through the work. And social media is kind of divided, Some people are wondering, why are you talking about it? Anyway, what I like about what Akuffo Dampare has done is by putting it on paper, I mean, the examples that I've given, Victor Beho never really wrote anything on paper. I don't think Adom-Otchere wrote. I stand to be corrected. But here, Akuffo Dampare has published it and published it openly. And if you read the content, you will be convinced one way or the other. We're going to do that now and see which angle to which you have been convinced. But here it starts. Now, this is a letter written to the police administration, and there's a written to the British High Commission, the British High Commission, Julius Nyerere link in Accra, dear Madam High Commissioner, it says, police administration's response to your tweet on Tuesday, 17th May, 2022. It goes as follows. Dear Madam High Commissioner, the attention of the Ghana Police Service has been drawn to your tweet, which reads, Oliver Baka-Vomaho, convener of #FixTheCountry movement, arrested again. I understand for a motoring offense on his way to court. I'll be interested to see where this goes. Okay, so this is what the British High Commissioner tweeted. Well, I don't know what the diplomatic conventions are, but Her Excellency put this out publicly, and it indicated something either untoward or so in terms of the tone, the colorization of the tweet sort of gave a certain indication. So let's move on and see why the police are worried. Ordinarily, the Ghana Police Service, Dampare says, will not have responded to comments such as yours, obviously made from either a biased or uninformed position. However, we have learned from previous painful experience that it has not been helpful to ignore such misguided, unwarranted, and biased comments intended to tarnish the reputation of the Ghana Police Service and that of our country. What is more, we consider your tweet a violation of the Geneva Convention on Diplomatic Relations 1961, which enjoins diplomatic missions not to interfere in the internal affairs of their host country. Okay. Your Excellency, the fact that you used the phrase arrested again, we believe, must mean you were making reference to the previous occasions that Mr. Baka-Vomaho was arrested for threatening the security of the state and recently for motor traffic offenses. We intend, therefore, to address both issues in this letter. Since you may be unaware of the charges against the person of interest in your tweet, we are happy to give you some background. Among other things, in February this year, Mr. Baka-Vomaho threatened the security of the state by categorically stating his intention to stage a coup d'etat and cause instability in the country if the army, which he referred to as useless, was unable to do so. These same threats have subsequently been repeated by Mr. Baka-Vomaho on his social media handles. In line with the laws of the Republic of Ghana, he was arrested and taken through due process and was granted bail by a court of competent jurisdiction. That matter is still pending before the law courts. Okay. On Tuesday, 17th May 2022, Mr. Adom-Otchere was among other drivers who were arrested separately for road traffic offenses. They were all arraigned before the courts, where some pleaded guilty, were convicted and paid their fines accordingly. However, this person pleaded not guilty, was granted bail by the court, and was released after fulfilling the bail conditions. Against this backdrop, and in view of the fact that he is not the only person who is being taken through due process for committing an offense in this country, it is difficult to understand why he is your only focus. Are we to understand that you are concerned about the law enforcement process in Ghana, or only as applied to your person of interest? We are not oblivious of how, as a country, Britain reveres his army and continuously celebrates both serving and retired officers in British Armed Forces. It might not be what you expect, but please be informed that as a country, Ghana similarly treasures its police service and armed forces and all other security agencies, and we are anxious to build these institutions into strong and revered pillars of society that perform their duties excellently. As our former colonial power and source of our legal, judicial, and criminal justice architecture, and indeed of our police service, we continue to look up to Britain, among other countries, for guidance with regards to how difficult situations are handled. We note that some leaders of faith-based organizations in your country made pronouncements that were considered as national security threats. They were branded as terrorists, arrested, prosecuted, and in some cases were extradited. Okay, this we believe your country did in its quest to safeguard the security of the state and ensure the sustenance of the peace the inhabitants enjoy. Do you not think we, the Ghanaian people, also deserve a peaceful country? Maybe reflecting on these questions will help you to appreciate our position on such matters. 1. Are there instances in your country where people are permitted to openly threaten the security of the state with a coup? 2. In instances where individuals have threatened the security of the state, does your criminal justice system celebrate such persons and urge them on to destabilize your country? 3. As a foreign service officer, even though you might not have personal experience, you doubtless have access to the records of the periods of unrest and coups in Ghana. Are you really wishing on us a return to those times? Are you able to direct us to instances in your country where citizens are permitted to insult, attack, and incite your army and other security apparatus to destabilize the country? Do you people get arrested for traffic offenses in your country? Now that made me laugh, isn't it? That's really funny, because the British MTTU, they'll catch you to 1 minute, you are caught. We just cross the red traffic light, all guns will go blazing, the siren will just come and they will just grab you. And when we were students, we used to look at that as a spectacle. You get out from the train at Russell Square, you are going back to your hostel, and then you see the police are coming. They were just coming to arrest some guy, little guy who just crossed the double yellow is parking in England, and he parked at a place where it's single yellow. And within 2 minutes they are there. We used to look at it as a spectacle. So that got me laughing. So asking the British High Commissioner, do you people get arrested for traffic offenses in your country? The answer is a big yes. People do get arrested, and Her Excellency added that he was on his way to court. I don't know whether that was intended to give it some material. But if it did, it's totally immaterial to the fact where one is coming from in the British jurisdiction and offends traffic laws and will be arrested or not. Many years ago, when Tony Blair was Prime Minister, his wife was arrested for violating train rules. I think she boarded a train and she had not paid or something. She was First Lady of the country. She was arrested by the police. Mrs. Sherry Blair, or Sherry Booth, however you like to call her, she was arrested by the police. So really, that question got me really laughing, because the answer is a big yes. And not to pass judgment yet on what Dampare is saying, I'd like you to do that on the Facebook. Send your text message right now, what you think about this one, to Good Evening Ghana Official. But I'd like to take that question again. Do people get arrested for traffic offenses in your country? Is it the case that a person on his way to a British court cannot be pulled over for traffic offenses or any other offenses for that matter? That's an interesting question. That's the point I was making. The reference to the fact that Adom-Otchere was on his way to court in the tweet. It's quite interesting. Okay. It says, is it the case that a person on his way to a British court cannot be pulled over for traffic offenses or any other offenses for that matter? All right. Are you still persuaded, 3 days after your tweet, that you were within the bounds of the Vienna Convention, which regulates the conduct of diplomats in countries in which they serve? Well, I've not looked at the Vienna Convention. I think that the people in international relations experts will have to tell us. But this is a very important question to Her Excellency High Commissioner Harriet Thompson. Harriet Thompson, High Commissioner. Harriet Harman is the guy who was Prime Minister. Harriet Thompson is the Excellency, the High Commissioner in Ghana. And she's being asked a question by Dr. Dampare. He says, are you still persuaded, 3 days after your tweet, that you were within the bounds of the Vienna Convention, which regulates the conduct of diplomats in the countries in which they serve? Okay. Are you still persuaded, 3 days after your tweet, okay, that you were within the Vienna Convention? I've said that already. Do you know of any instances where Ghanaian diplomats in Britain have involved themselves in your internal affairs? Is there any particular reason why, of all the people arrested daily for various offenses in Ghana, you are especially interested in this person's case? That's a difficult one for Harriet Thompson, Her Excellency Harriet Thompson, to answer. I reckon it will be a difficult question for her to answer because she may not be aware of other people who have been arrested of traffic offenses. Mr. Vomaho must have, as he usually does, gone quickly on Facebook to say that I've been arrested for traffic offenses, already pleaded not guilty. I think that the trial is proceeding. They will have to supply the evidence in court. He's already on bail on that matter to show that he was guilty of the traffic offense, and he will have to be punished accordingly. So that's an important question that Dampare is asking here. Is there any particular reason why, of all the people arrested daily for various offenses in Ghana, you are especially interested in this person's? I mean, I don't know if I am arrested tomorrow for traffic offense, whether Her Excellency would tweet and say that the host of Good Evening Ghana has just been arrested when he was on his way to the stadium. I'm not sure whether she's going to say that or not. But anyone can be arrested for traffic offense. I guess that I have been before. With the Nima police station, isn't it? Yeah, I'm sure I have been before. Okay, let's go on. Is it the case that you don't have confidence in our justice delivery, criminal justice system, and our court process as a whole? That's also a very important question. And that's a question that I'm sure that Her Excellency Thompson will have to have a look at. Is it the case that, well, she understands that people should be arrested? That's what Dampare is asking. Is it that maybe you understand that people should be arrested? Because they get arrested in England, of course. But somehow you think that the justice delivery system will not do them justice. Is that why you are complaining? That may be why she's complaining. That may be a reasonable basis to complain. If indeed she has a reasonable sense of perception that there is something wrong with the judicial and justice delivery system. That's a conversation we can have, and that's a very good question that Dr. Dampare asked here. Okay, another one. Do you know how the number of members of parliament, chief executives, and other high-profile Ghanaians who have been arrested and prosecuted for road traffic offenses and have submitted themselves to the due process? If you care to know, we will be delighted to share the list with you. Very, very important, because Dampare has to demonstrate that the arrest of Mr. Vomaho is a process that would have arrested me, would have arrested you, would have arrested a member of parliament, would have arrested so-called high-profile Ghanaians, would have arrested ministers, and he's saying that he's willing to share the list. Of course, when CTFM put up that, we remember that campaign CTFM did, it arrested a lot of important people. In fact, it was actually targeted at important people. All of these sirens, and people have sirens in their V8, and they set out and they are coming and they're on the other side of the road. All of that campaign was waged. CTFM was a radio partner of the Ghana Police Service. They went in and we all saw the videos. Many videos went around. So yes, we do know that high-profile people have been arrested for traffic offenses. And those days we all had to be careful that, the police catch you and they arrest you. There's footballer Derek Boateng, you remember him? The Black Star star. Derek Boateng got arrested. He got very angry, exchanged words with the police. They filmed him, but eventually he had to submit himself to the due process and to pay the fine. Now that has gone down a little bit. So yes, IGP is right. We can all corroborate what he's saying here. He's very, very correct. Okay, let's move on. Have the legally and internationally accepted limits associated with freedom of speech and association been stretched to the point where people can now say and act without regard to the sanctity, security, and the very survival of a country? When it comes to such matters, are there any limits in place in your country? Okay. Are you interested in the number of lives lost to the road accidents and the number of injured persons as well as families who have become destitute as a result of such accidents caused by the infractions of people like the person of interest to you, that's a deep one. That one is a deep one. So Vomaho is driving anyhow. It's going to injure somebody. It's going to kill somebody. Somebody is going to lose a father, maybe a poor father because he's standing by the road selling or something. Vomaho is going to crash into him. He's going to die. His children can no longer go to school. They probably have not reached the age of free SHS yet. They are in JSS, so it has to be paid. They cannot pay their money. They cannot access free SHS. They become destitute. These are the consequences of Vomaho driving anyhow. Is the High Commissioner saying that? That's a very, very important question Dampare is asking here. That yes, you may be interested in Vomaho because the human rights activist, as you see it. However, there are other people whose rights to live, the very right to live, is being threatened by his recklessness. And you send a tweet that we should leave him alone because he's human rights activist? The people whose lives are being threatened because he's reckless on the road and he's been arrested and he's arrested and he quickly goes on Facebook, I've been arrested. What about the lives of the people that you were threatening? Your recklessness is taking somebody's life out. Somebody's going to die. His child is not going to become Vomaho like you and speak English and rights fix the country. That child is 9 years old. His father has died because of your recklessness. He can't even finish JSS. He will end up, if he doesn't have football skill to play for Asante Kotoko or House of Folk and get to the Black Stars, the guy's life is finished. In a country like Ghana, is gone. Your recklessness. And we should protect you because you can write on Facebook you are Vomaho. You can write on Facebook and say I've been arrested. And because you've been arrested, some big people can come and talk. We don't want to build a society like that. We want a society that protects the vulnerable. That's why I support free SHS to the hilt, because it protects the vulnerable. That's the point. We want to protect the vulnerable. In Britain, they have council flats. They protect the vulnerable. If you are 18 and you don't have a job, they'll give you dough. You can get some money as you look for a job. They protect the vulnerable. We want to build our society to the level where we can protect the vulnerable. That is why they will arrest the Prime Minister's wife. If she's violating something, paying for her train ticket, that will give other people taxpayers' money and can invest in the community so that the vulnerable are protected. Vomaho should drive recklessly and kill people. And when he's arrested, it's a problem because he's a human rights activist. The very lives of human beings is being threatened by his reckless behavior on the road. And you expect the police to look at it and say, hey, that's Vomaho, don't touch him. No, IGP Dampare is not going to stand for that. He's not going to stand for that. That's the question he's asking here. That yes, you may be interested in Vomaho because a human rights activist. Fair enough. But are you also interested in the people whose his recklessness is going to take out? When I get arrested by the police, I submit myself to the process. I regret that I have done what I have done, and I go through the process. The police always tell you, you don't do that anymore. Now they are beginning to do the thing they do in Britain. They'll take your license and put a stamp in it. And then you cannot drive anymore. They are beginning to implement that. The road safety people are doing that. Because we also want to build a society like Britain. So we don't want Vomaho because he's a human rights activist and he can say, fix the country, and he can go to court and scream at the judge so he can drive recklessly and kill people. We don't want that. We can't have that. It's not good to do that. And that's a good question. It's the High Commissioner. And look at how much money Britain pays to Ghana for the protection of the vulnerable. Britain pays to Ghana in education. Britain gives Ghana money for health. They give Ghana money for all sorts of things. She represents that British taxpayer here. Is that the way to represent the British taxpayer? To tell us that to be suspicious about the arrest of somebody who has conducted reckless driving, when you can really get the information as a British High Commissioner, you can get any information. You can call the police. In fact, they have defense attaché right there. As a defense attaché, can you ask IGP Dampare's office to furnish us with what happened yesterday over the arrest of the human rights? We want to be sure that the guy has done something wrong. We don't want to think that the guy is being victimized. You can tell that internally, and the information will come to you. But if you go on tweet and do a public tweet, and somebody is sitting in California, a history professor is sitting in California and he's doing some analysis and he sees the tweet. He says, oh, there's a problem in Ghana. We think that Ghana is degenerating in human rights. He says, why? He said, British High Commissioner just tweeted. The guy who is fighting for human rights, they arrested him for some traffic offense or something. He was on his way to court. That's what happens. California has seen it. Los Angeles has seen it. Japan has seen it. Britain has seen it. Holland has seen it. South Africa has seen it. That's what a tweet does. That's why we have Twitter. That's why it's 44 billion, because it is very powerful. And it is even more powerful when powerful people like the British High Commissioner in Ghana is writing on Twitter and making allegations with the colorization of the tweet. And that's why Dampare is asking her 3 days after your tweet, do you still stand by it? Do you think that really we shouldn't arrest people? And you talk about he's been arrested again. As if we are just arresting for Mahoi, we are just arresting him. And that's, I'll say something at the end of this. Let's move on. Okay. Have you taken note of the innovations being introduced by the Ghana Police Service in recent times to deepen discipline, law and order, as well as protect lives and property in this country? Are you interested that we are doing our best to get it right? Very, very important. Have you taken note of the innovations being introduced by the Ghana Police Service in recent times to deepen discipline, law and order, as well as protect lives and property in this country? Are you interested in that we are doing our best to get it right? Okay. For the moment, we will recommend a Ghanaian saying that might guide you in your diplomatic engagement. The saying goes, "Diufiasem." It means learn to keep within the limits of what concerns you. Please accept the assurances of our highest regard, our highest consideration. Well, that part I'm not sure about. I mean, if I was writing that letter, I wouldn't add that part. The Diufiasem is quite strong. I mean, Diufiasem has a big political colorization. You remember Professor Mills was the one who talked about it when he was asked that there's election violence in La Côte d'Ivoire. And I'm interested in that story because I was one of those journalists who went to the palace in Abidjan to meet with Laurent Gbagbo in those days. We interviewed him. And Professor Mills made that at a press conference when he was asked. He said Diufiasem, and everybody laughed about it. I don't know whether. But anyway, that's Dampare writing. It says, please accept the assurances of our highest consideration. So this is the letter, now you've seen it. This is the letter that has been catching fire on social media. We decided to start with it before we go to our main story.